To jest Telewizja Republika, to jest Dom Wolnego Słowa, a naszymi gośćmi są Fabrice Leggeri i Pierre-Romain Tonnet, a przełączamy się na język angielski, a Ziemowit, na którego patrzę, będzie tę rozmowę tłumaczył na język polski. Wersję oryginalną będą Państwo mogli również obejrzeć na YouTube. Gentlemen, we are switching to English. Welcome to Telewizja Republika, great friends of Telewizja Republika again here in Poland. Our viewers know Fabrice very well because Fabrice was working here and protecting the borders of European Union as a chief of Frontex, and Pierre is a member of European Parliament working with the issues that we are dealing with all over Europe. Gentlemen, so let's start with the reasons why you are here, Fabrice, starting with you.
Well, we decided to visit Poland to have a focus on the external border of the European Union, and in particular, the way Poland is handling the borders to Belarus and to Russia. And we will also have high-level appointments today at the presidential chancellery. And it was an opportunity to connect with our network of, let's say, other colleagues, namely former Minister Mariusz Kaczyński.
Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik, I assume. Gentlemen, you are dealing with the issue in Europe, in Parliament, in Brussels. Today you are dealing with the number one threat to the European identity. This is the take of our viewers. This is the take of roughly 50 or maybe more % of the citizens of the European Union member states. But on the other hand, the European elites think about it in a different manner. They think that we need a migration pact, that we need the influx of migrants to Europe, and actually they see the migration crisis as an opportunity, not as a threat. Pierre, what's your take on this problem?
You're totally right, and this is our main debate in Europe between those, us, you also in Poland, a lot of friends and allies in all the continent who think that European peoples have their own identity. They have also common identity in the European civilization, of course Christianity, but also some Greek and Roman roots, very important also for all Europe. And there is the bureaucrats in Brussels, elites in Brussels, who do not see any identity, any culture, and they think that we can change people from around the world, make coming them in Europe, and they can be European in 2 or 3 years. And we absolutely disagree with this vision of Europe, and we say we need to protect our identity. And the first way to defend our identity is to protect our border. So, of course, that's why...
No borders, no states.
Yes.
No borders, no divisions between different systems and different cultures. Fabrice, most of our viewers know this, but not all of them, since as you as a director of Frontex, of the organization that was designed to protect external borders of European Union, and this agency is based here in Warsaw, you were head of this organization for a long time, and you were kicked off by the European elites for a very strange reason. Could you explain our viewers why you were kicked off this position? For what?
Because I wanted to protect the borders against migrants, and the establishment, the Brussels establishment, and the leftist NGOs, namely with the former European Commissioner Ylva Johansson, the Commissioner told me that migrants, I'm quoting, come for love, and whether I like it or not, I should welcome migrants, because Europe is an aging continent and we need migrants. And I totally disagreed with that, and I wanted to protect European borders, European nations, European identity.
Did she tell you exactly that?
Yes, she did.
She told you that the migrants come here from love and that we have such a low demographic numbers that we have to embrace them to solve our demographic problems?
This is their narrative, and this is the narrative spread by NGOs funded by Open Society, by Soros, and all this constellation of woke ideology, leftists. In France, we can also witness how the woke ideology works together with the leftist and the pro-Palestinian, the pro-Hamas, pro-Islamist organizations. So this is a very weird constellation.
I'm stunned because before we, actually my viewers know that this is the file that I just showed to my viewers in the morning. I found it on my desk when I arrived here today. This is a court decision to censor our texts and our editorials about the member of a liberal left NGO, person who was personally involved in communications with the people who were smuggling people across the border, and who was also, and who is actually, a member of an internal body in Poland that is dealing with so-called Russian influence. And she was in contact with the people who were actually smuggling people from Belarus and from Russia to Poland, and we were just given the order by the court to silence us on that case. I wanted to have your opinion, gentlemen, about the freedom of speech in Europe in that context, on that particular case, on the case of the migration problem that we have in Europe, because I see it exactly in that manner. Pierre.
We have the same problem in France and all over Europe. We have seen a few days ago that in England, for example, there will be a new crime of thinking, which is to say, they call it cultural nationalism. And so they switch. Before it was
the cultural nationalism will be a crime now.
And what is cultural nationalism? It is to say that there is a British culture, and we should keep British culture, and so we need to protect against migration and against change of culture. And this is a new crime in England, in free speech. So we are very aware of this, and we will see that in Brussels, in France, and I hope now in Warsaw, in Poland, maybe there will be a new restriction in the freedom of speech on cultural thing, on cultural nationalism. So there is always new threats on free speech. This is another one.
Fabrice, you mentioned those strange, or maybe not strange, mix between different ideas that shouldn't be combined anyhow. I mean, what's the relation, what should be relation between the migration flow, the support for Hamas and terrorist organizations, woke, what should it have in common, but somehow it has.
What they have in common is that somehow they hate our identity. They hate Western civilization. They hate what we represent, our nations, and they just want to erase our culture. So, for example, in France, those political groups say that we are accountable for colonialism, etc. In some other parts of Europe, they say it's authoritarian regime. But anyway, they hate what we are. They hate European identity.
Fabrice, you mentioned the stunning discussion. That's the first time I've heard it so straight from what you just said, what Ylva Johansson told you. But I wanted you to explain also our viewers what technically you were responsible for, because your duties here were also part of the internal Polish debate and of the internal political attacks on government back then by the opposition back then, and this opposition right now is ruling Poland. It was the case of so-called officers. What was the name of it? Fundamental rights officers within your organization. Could you tell us a little bit about this case? What were those officers, or maybe still are?
Well, normally Frontex is the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, meaning that the role is to support national border police to protect the borders against illegal migration and criminal activities at the borders. But in practice, there are some fundamental rights monitors embedded in the agency, and in fact, they want to deter law enforcement officers, border guards from doing their job. For example, when I deployed Frontex to Lithuania to protect the Lithuanian border against Belarus and all the migrants coming from Belarus, the fundamental rights monitors advised me to pay buses to transport all migrants from Belarus to Lithuania, and they added, if there is not space enough in Lithuania, you should send all the migrants to Poland. So that's why I advised, at that time, peace government in Warsaw. I said, my advice, do not request Frontex support, because if you have Frontex support, then you have the fundamental rights monitors, and you will have all the NGOs at the borders, and you will not be able to do your job.
That's absolutely shocking. You were the director of Frontex back then. I remember it very well. Polish opposition politicians back then and European Union officials were pushing Polish government to ask your organization, Frontex, to step in. And you were advising Polish government not to do it because if they do it, they will have their borders crossed by the NGOs and all of that?
Yeah, correct. And I could see how the peace government decided to build the fence. And yesterday we visited the Belarus border and we could see the fence. And I think that was the right decision and the right tool to protect the border.
Pierre, the border fences and the border walls all around the world are a talking point and a line of attack of the liberal left on any conservative government anywhere in the world. Donald Trump was being bashed for building a wall on the southern border, but we do have several border walls or border fences around Europe. So what's your assessment? What's your take after the visit on the Polish and Belarus border on this construction?
This infrastructure on these walls are absolutely necessary. And of course, after the Cold War, there was a global thinking all over Europe or Western world that there will be no need of walls, no need of borders, and no need of armies or armed forces because there will be no war. It was the end of history, like Fukuyama said in a famous book. And no,
or John Lennon was singing.
yes, also. But no, we see that was the old times. No, we need to new budget in our armed forces. We need fences and we need border protection. And it is also funny that people were criticized of building fences and protecting border. Now they are going on this project. So we see it in United States. Biden has built again the Trump walls, and we saw also in Poland that maybe those who were criticized about building fences at the border, these fences
the same people who were the same people who were actually urging government to take Frontex in. They were against the building of that fence, and again we had the same situation in European Parliament. Gentlemen, from your perspective of your knowledge about European Parliament, what is the current position of this European mainstream on Europe protection of borders and on the migration? Because I simply cannot believe that states with hundreds of years of experience in naval operations are unable to stop a couple of dinghy boats going through the Mediterranean to Italy, to Spain, or to France. What is the reason why this thing is happening? Fabrice, you have your own experience regarding that.
Well, there is a narrative which has been spread by NGOs and by leftist organizations, and they say that that it is illegal to stop illegal crossing. And this is their narrative. And I think that to a certain extent, governments were too shy and they didn't try to really protect the border, and they cope with the fact that, well, the migrants want to come, you cannot stop them. But now there is a shift in the European Parliament, but also in the Council, where national governments are represented in the European Union. And we see that step by step there is a shift to the right, there is a shift to a stricter migration policy. And my hope is that together with our political group, Patriots for Europe, but also with other political groups in the European Parliament, and namely we also work closely on this file with the peace from Poland, I'm hopeful that we can change the situation soon.
Gentlemen, you mentioned the European Parliament political groups, there is a division between conservative political groups in European Parliament, and we see a strange and very interesting political situation all over the Europe. Roughly 40, maybe even 50% of the voters in Europe lean rather conservative than liberal left. And the division between those political groups makes your voice or voice of other conservative politicians in European Parliament smaller, weaker. What can you do as a politicians? What can people do as a people who support this viewpoint to create a kind of unity on the conservative side within the European Parliament, Pierre?
If we look on the paper, in the hemicycle in Brussels or Strasbourg, we see there is different group in the conservative family or right family. But when we have some common votes on different texts, we are able to vote on the same thing and to vote together. So, of course, there is different group for different reasons, sometimes domestic reason in different countries. But we are on the strong issues like migration policy, like to fight against a green ideology of Brussels, a Green Deal, or to give more freedom for companies in the market. We are all united and we are able to have a majority in the parliament. So we have different groups for different reasons, sometimes difficult to understand why, I know, but we are able to have an alternative majority to this parliament on some topic, and it is our goals in our party in France, Rassemblement National, to be able to have this majority all the time.
Fabrice, your take on the same issue, because it's been going on for many, many years. I remember for the first time, like, I don't know, 15 or maybe even 20 years ago, when the Front National back then was very close to gain power in France, it actually didn't happen. And I remember those discussions also on the Polish right, not to deal with the Front National because of some reasons, not to deal with other right-wing political parties in various different states. But there are, from my perspective, at least 5 topics that the conservatives all over the Europe have a common view on. And those are not geopolitical issues, but security and cultural issues. So what is the basis on which we can cooperate in Europe among conservatives?
Definitely, I think that while security, protecting our citizens against crime, protecting our citizens and our identities against mass migration, which is mostly illegal migration, boosting our economy. In France, Jordan Bardella really wants to boost economic growth. So we need to get rid of all this Green Deal and all this bureaucracy coming from Brussels and even amplified by the French government now. I think that we also have to be proud of what we are, and that we encourage our citizens, and that we can tell our citizens, don't be shy, don't be afraid, be proud of what you are, be proud of what you can achieve. And I think this is what we have in common. And if we work together, if we win elections in the same time in different European countries, then we will overturn the system and change Europe.
Overturning the system, I love the idea. Hope that this can happen one day. Gentlemen, I got actually not a question, but the issue that I would like to have your comment on, starting with you, Fabrice. Based on your knowledge from the times of your work in Frontex and from your very years of your professional experience, what do we know about the political mechanisms and the state actors that are behind the illegal migration influx to Europe? We know it from the Polish perspective, but we know that at least in few other places there have to be a state actor behind this flow of migrants, because no private entity is so powerful to continue this kind of project for many, many years, and this is actually what is happening. What is the nature of this process?
I think that there is one reason behind is that, there are some forces that would like to have cheap labor force, and they need to import cheap labor force from abroad, not European labor force. then they are weak and they don't, I mean, governments, for example, in France, don't want to really enforce return. For example, we have an argument with Algeria and the government is weak. And we need to have more assertive government. And they are also paralyzed because they are NGOs. And many NGOs get public funds. So I think this is how the establishment has no will to really protect our
So you
borders.
think this is an internal reason inside Europe?
I think so. There is an internal reason inside Europe, and then criminal networks see this as an opportunity to make money, and then perhaps some other organizations with an anti-Western ideology, they use it. And for example, I'm really scared by the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood is really in the mindset of an ideology that would like to take an advantage in France, in Belgium, and maybe in other European countries.
You have Muslim Brotherhood problem because of the Islam minority, because of Islam problem within the French society, but Muslim Brotherhood is strictly connected to governments of the states that are dominantly Islamic states. We have a problem of Russia supporting and Belarus supporting this illegal migrant flow through the Belarusian and Russian border. And this is also a state actor behind the kind of issue. Pierre, your comment?
Yes, we have different issues. If we look at the southern flank, I would say the Mediterranean Sea or African Atlantic coast, here is not mostly state actors. We are doing this illegal migration. It is mostly left on NGOs, we help this migrant, but also the faults of our own governments. It's very important to focus on the faults of our own governments. But you're right, on the eastern flank for Poland, for Lithuania, here we have to look that migration is a geopolitical weapon. And so in the hand of Minsk, in the hand of Moscow, so the hand of Lukashenko and Putin. And it is also why we are here. We are from France, but we are very aware of the 360-degree vision we have to have in Europe, in protecting Europe. It is also from southern threats, but also from eastern threats, like Russia is doing now in Ukraine, but also to destabilize all Europe or Europe nations.
Frontex is responsible for external European Union borders, and this is my final question to you, Fabrice. But we have also, and we didn't have this problem before, we have also a problem of the illegal migrants that are being distributed and pushed from Germany back to Poland, or actually to Poland, because we are not sure if those are the people who before were even present in Poland. When we talked briefly before the interview, you told me something very interesting, that France has a similar problem.
Yes, the same phenomenon can be witnessed at the western border of Germany. And they are migrants being pushed by German police to France. And those migrants have never been in France. So this shows that now the German government wants to at least give the impression that it's dealing with migration. But we know that 10 years ago, Angela Merkel invited more than 1 million illegal migrants to come because German industry wanted to have this cheap labor force, plus the leftist German NGOs. And now, who will have to pay the bill? The neighbors, Poland, France, and maybe some other neighbors.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your visit. Wish you all the best. You are staying here for a while, so I am also waiting for your views and for your comments on the situation in Poland. Fabrice Leggeri, thank you very much. Pierre Romain Tonnet, thank you very much, gentlemen. See you soon and welcome to beautiful Poland.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Telewizja Republika, Dom Wolnego Słowa. This is Telewizja Republika, the home of free speech. Proszę zostać z nami.